What is God like? The formula of God is a little like General Electric. He lights your path. God is a little like Bear Aspirins. He works wonders in your life. God is a little like Hallmark cards. He cares enough to send the best. God is a little like Tide. He gets out the tough stains someone else leaves behind. God is a little like Scotch tape. You can't see him, but you know he's there. God is a little like copper top batteries. Nothing can outlast him. The formula of God is a little like Alka-Seltzer. Oh, what a relief he is. Blessed be the name of the Lord, and welcome to Speaking Candidly. And I'm your host, Minister Demeatrus Robinson Sr, M.A. So how's everybody feeling out there? Let's say it together. Kept by the power of God. Kept by the power of God. The message today is titled God's Formula, or the formula of God. Now each and every one of us have a very unique formula that God has prescribed specifically for us. You see, the word formula is defined as a conventionalized statement intended to express some fundamental truth or principle, especially as a basis for negotiation or action. See, many of you are asking the question, what is the formula of God? Or what type of formula has God prescribed in my life? Well, my first topic today is titled, God has prescribed a formula for each of us. You see, in Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 3 says that in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the water. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. So when we conclude that the text claimed that God created the heavens and earth on the first day, what do the heavens consist of? Well, they consist of stars, galaxies, planets, and etc. So we know that God created at minimum the stars, the earth, the galaxies, and the planet. Now, actually, the Hebrew phrase translate heaven and earth refers to the entire created universe. Some people claim that God created the earth first and that the rest of the heavenly bodies were created later. But that's still out. The jury's still out on that. Now, however, we are led to contemplate why God said that he created the heavens and earth. Well, to accept this interpretation, we would have to say that God created nothing and the earth. Now, if God had only created the earth, the Genesis 1:1 would have said, in the beginning God created the earth. So we can safely say that God created the entire heavens and the earth in the beginning of the first creation day. Where's God? In heaven, in outer space. Some people are still pondering this question as I speak. Well, God is our creator and savior. He resides within each of us, doing his creating close up and personal. Can you imagine that God personally came into the world to create and shape it for habitation? The most important thing about this created the most important thing about God's redemptive power and glory that he bestowed upon us, is that in verses 1 through 3 is that it defines the condition as it appears from God's perspective on the surface of the earth. Now, what are the conditions? The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the depth before God got started. Okay? Now, why was the earth dark? Now, Genesis 1 does not say, but other creations, stories, may say otherwise. But we're going to stick to what the creation story says according to the text. But other creation story also, or accounts also say in the Bible, it did not say, but other stories do say. But in fact, the book of Job, God himself tells us to answer. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? When I made a cloud of his garment, and thick darkness is swallowing bandit. And that's Job 38, chapter 38, verses 4 through 9. Now, all living creatures were innately born with certain characteristics and personality traits carried from one or both parents, which help define one's genetic identity. It's part of God's formula. The wonders and mysteries of God, or some may say the invisible God, seem to govern all thoughts in a conscious and unconscious state. The invisible God, or God, the sovereign God over all, governs all thoughts of the conscious and unconscious state. You see, our thoughts, whether good or bad, or in between, are owned by the invisible God. And then they are transformed into many different languages or words. The thoughts are transformed into words, and those words are transformed into many different languages and meanings and interpretations of what we deem the word means from our perspective as human beings. Even the non-believers and believers that God believe that God does not exist, even the non-believers believe that God does not exist. But it took some thought of that atheist to reach such fallacies. Now, they must ask themselves, who stands watch over their share of a body while they sleep in an unconscious state? Who provides the enriched oxygen which helps sustain them, and who gives them the sight and the help for the blind? When they have become blinded, by their sin and iniquity, when they have become blind because of a result of their foolishness. What happens? My next topic. What happens when we use God's formula? Transformational things happen when we start using the things that are unique to us. When we start taking those tools out of our toolbox that belong to someone else, that somehow, some way seemed to have found itself in our toolbox because we were living reckless and out of control lives. Now, I would say that I would take the Bible to be literally true, and that it is an accurate representation of history and truth in general. When you take into account the language being used, problems is that language itself is essentially a betrayal of reality. But the betrayal is never a complete picture of reality. Wallace, the Greek grammar beyond, says that the Greek grammar beyond the basis. Now this was coming from Wallace in his book called Greek Grammar Beyond the Basis. And that's page 685 of his book. Now, in the case of the 7-day creation, I take the days to be literally 24 hours a day. But I take them as being revelatory or prophetic. Genesis 1 is a vision. And so it must be as there was no human ground to actually see what is happening. Furthermore, God is being spoken of as a third person. He, as opposed to first person, I. As if someone were viewing the event happening and recording them, as opposed to God himself directly telling us what was happening. For example, Moses spent many days on Mount Sinai when God gave him the law. What if God took a week during that time and revealed to him his vision? On the first day, being Sunday, God showed Moses Genesis 1, verses 1 through 5. Then Moses goes to sleep and wakes up the next day, Monday, and God shows him Genesis 1, 6 through 8, etc. Now, if this is the case, that the creation days were a vision, then what the vision meant is subjected to interpretations. Not to say that it could mean anything, for there is only one correct interpretation. But getting at it may not be all that obvious. You see, a serpent sees opportunity for greatness rather than what the person can become with a little seasoning for taste or with a little help through mentoring the lost soul as a way to redeem themselves in the eyes of the beholder. You see, the formula of God has detoured from its original state in sake of a new mission to seek and destroy everything God created through the deity that we call Satan. The man-made deity that we call Satan. For myself, I think that the categorical interpretation best fits what I think God was trying to say in Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. Now, what happens when we substitute God's formula with Satan? Well, several things happen when we substitute God's formula for Satan or our own. We get reckless. We become misguided. We become misled. We become something outside the will of God. But listen to what John says. John 1, verses 1 through 3 reads, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And He was with God in the beginning. And He was with God in the beginning." But something happened along the way, that He fell off the trail. He fell off the path. He became something outside of John. But keep listening. Through him all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The light shines in the world. And now that that light shines in the world, nothing can overcome it. Nothing can overpower that light. Not even darkness. Because wherever there's evil, the light will shine upon that darkness to reveal that evil thought, that evil deed. Stay with me now. John 14:5-7. Jesus said that I am the vine, you are the branches. You remain in me, and me in you. You will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withered. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. Now, if you remain in me, and my word remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. You see the power in the words? If you continue to practice my precepts, my guide, my instructions as I have given them to you, then you will multiply, add, rather than subtract and divide. And whatever you ask for in his name will be given. Whatever you ask for, whatever you believe, whatever your faith may be. But if it's grounded in Jesus Christ, it will be granted. That's a lot of power, people. Power in the words. If you believe it, from the bottom to the top of your heart, he will grant it. But stay with me. You know, I don't know about you, but for me personally, I know that there is a lot of power behind the name Jesus. I know personally that there is a lot of power in the word called God. I know personally that if you will put your trust in him, when you put your belief in him, and you have established a personal relationship with him, unlike mine, but similar, that all things are possible with God, while all things are impossible with man, as you can see by looking at your window, by looking at that circle that surrounds you today. That same trust and love and caring and compassion that will be needed in the last days will not be there when you need it. But you can best believe that you can trust in that invisible God. You can trust in the name God and Jesus Christ to be there for you when all the chips are down. When you're going through domino effects, you lost your job, you lost your house, you lost your car, you lost your family. You lost everything that you worked so hard for. But no one was there but that invisible God, who's always present in your subconscious or even in your conscious state, who always sent an angel to help you find the path or find the pathway back to him. And some of you know what I'm talking about. You see, the world is driven by political and religious ideology. And people are preconditioned to believe in what they preach, teach, and expect as being acceptable outcomes. But I'm here to tell you, there's no better acceptable outcome than trusting in God, than having a personal relationship with God, about taken solitude to speak with God, to speak with those inner thoughts and inner intuitions that'll tear you up at this moment. You see, the Willie Lynch theory helped both slave owners and underground slave traders keep their captives. Keep the free and captives in line for centuries. The Willie Lynch theory helped keep the free and captive in line for centuries. You see, the harsh and punitive methods used by the Willie Lynch theory of putting the fear of God into women as they held a male child as their husbands suffered cruel and unusual punishment at the hands of their masters. Many of you are familiar with the Willie Lynch theory. If not, then I advise you before you move on to stop this video and look it up to give you a general idea of where I'm trying to go with this. You see, man, even though he was born in the image of God, has developed a different type of formula that God has prescribed. So he has deviated from the original formula to deny God his glory. Stay with me now. I'm not sure whether or not Satan exists or not. But one thing is for sure that I do know is that man does a pretty good job of representing Satan rather than God. The way I see the idea of Satan is that if God created the angels and Satan being one of them, then Satan is under the authority of God and not his own. Did I say that? Yes, I did. I said if God created the angels and Satan being an angel, then Satan is up under the authority of God and not himself. Then God has dominion over Satan's followers also, because it is a win-win situation for God, no matter whether people come into him or Satan. He created Satan and he knows his evil intentions very well. God knows and understands his creation is curious and their existence will. God understands that his creation, his human creation, or the civilization he created is curious about their existence. And because of their curiosity, they have taken drastic measures to uncover the secrets of their way of life. If it means taking lies or crippling lies with fallacies to continue their sick ways, so be it. Because one has to maintain the power. God's formula is the medication that heals all battle wounds, heals all scars and all sickness. And it even heals convictions as a result of the stripes earned and unearned. You see, God has a plan for your life. But first you must be open and willing to allow him to direct your path. God's formula is prescribed according to his precepts that will allow you, if you accept it, to be awakened from a deep sleep. You see, many of us are literally dead and have become dead weight. People who have been born again undergo a complete makeover. They go through what Lazarus went through when he lied stinking and rotten in a crib. Before Jesus came unto him and awakened him from his deep sleep. But many of us saw Lazarus as being dead and breathless. But here is a man, here is a godly man with power beyond one's recollection, who raised Lazarus from the dead back into a world of the living. Stay with me now. You see, your old baggage must be traded in for a new armor. A new and improved armor that can withstand all tropical conditions. Even the devil has undergone a complete makeover and is armed with both the new and the old armor of God's new formula. He's armed with the old and the new formula of God. You see, God, a God that discriminates would not have allowed such a tragedy to happen on his watch. Meaning, a God that discriminates with the believers against the non-believers would not have allowed Satan to take on that new armor. He would have denied him. He would have recognized him from a distance and stopped him in his tracks and said, hey, you're not allowed, okay, to partake of this new armor. Because what you have is what you get. And we cannot add to something that is not of him. So he would have stopped him in his tracks. So a God that discriminated would not have allowed such a tragedy to happen on his watch. But rather he would have interjected, like I said, and denied the devil or Satan access to his secret weapon or his formula. God is a just God. God is righteous. God is fair. God is loving. God is merciful and gracious God. If you come to him, once you have detached from your old baggage and you laid it down at the altar, or you laid it, or you tossed it in the trash can and gave it to whomever the tools belong to in that toolbox, because they are not unique to God. But if you are willing to do that, those gracious words that I spoke about my God would also be spoken into your life. And your life will be transformed with the formula of God. God loved the world so much, that he gave his only begotten Son as a sacrifice to save his creation. I do not know about you, but I couldn't have followed in those footsteps. Never alone Jesus' footsteps. I'm so glad that someone loved me enough to stick their necks out on the line, to give up their ghosts as a ransom for an old wretched like me. People are sacrificing their lives as I speak right now over in Afghanistan and Iraq and other parts of the country like Syria and Cyprus right now. Sacrificing their lives so others can live. Not knowing if they fighting for the right cause or not. But one thing is for sure, they know they're saving some lives. And saving lives means that I will return. I know that I have a return ticket. Doesn't matter whether it's in a coffin. Doesn't matter whether they float over the seas or they float over the beaches. But one thing is for sure, God has given them a return ticket to another shell of a body. People have died and suffered, sacrificed their lives during the evolution process. Caveman to modern man, ape to man, just to name a few of those creation stories or scientific stories that we hear all the time in our textbooks. And in the search of a great nation like America and other countries, many have sacrificed, suffered, sweat, blood, and tears have been the residual of what have made us who we are today. The blood and sweat and tears are a symbol of the sweat equity paid as interest to domestic and foreign investors. No one likes change, especially when it comes with lifetime benefits, from slavery to women's rights, equal rights, and civil rights. The lessons learned are one that painfully remind us that there is still work yet to be done in those areas. My next topic is titled, We Are Transformed by the Renewing of Our Minds. Women and minorities have gained much, and just as much as has been gained, that it needs to be protected. Yes, the world is a lot different than 80 years ago. But remember, there were both winners and losers towards progress. Never toss out the notion that equality has been gained or conquered. The enemy loves surprise because with it comes opportunity to overcome defeat. To overcome or be defeated. The enemy loves surprise because with it comes opportunity for victory or defeat. God plays both sides of any argument, offering advice for the defender and offender. Judge, jury, executioner, so have it. Even our own self-conscious, but only one will win their case. Okay, now out of them two, only one gonna win the case, right? It's gonna be a loser. Many of you may be experiencing this right now. Even our own self-conscious, unconscious state of mind played their roles really well by tripping us up or by saving us from defeat. God is not about who wins or who loses, but because he really has the glory and worthy, because he already has the glory and all the praises, and he's worthy of them. God has the ownership of the shell of our bodies which we reside in. The soul that resides in our bodies and the spirit that governs all thoughts and languages. God controls that. We all have to be debriefed or give a report to God once we have punched the clock that we call life for the last time. That's when we truly go into retirement. When we punch our clock for the last time. Okay? That life clock. for the last time. We're not sure the time that was allotted by God to achieve or touch lives, because days or but seconds to God. People are like the grass and the seasons of the year. They shed their old baggage every so often to make room for the new growth. Many of us have not learned the art of letting go and making room for new people and new things. People lose their way before they are sucked in to a road of a past time zone, clouding up the freeways towards future progress. God's formula is simple, and it comes with a proven track record for all of those who have applied his precepts to cure headaches and confusion about applied science, something that may work or relieve the headache and confusions in your life, versus a scientific doctrine, something that has proven itself to be effective once applied to affected area, versus a scientific doctrine, something that has proven itself to be effective once it has been applied to the affected area. Please do not just trust my word, but rather trust your experience and your experiences of someone you know lived a hard life, but now since then have been introduced to God's good formula. And because of that, they have been transformed and changed into a new person. I hope you enjoyed this message as much as I have. I live to live and be righteous in all your doings. I hope you enjoyed this message as much as I did once again. And I hope that you live a righteous life in all your doings. Thank you for listening to the new